Look around you. You live in a world of climate-controlled homes, smartphones, and global supply chains. We walk down neon-lit supermarket aisles and naturally assume that because our environment is highly advanced, we must be highly advanced creatures. That is an illusion. Biologically speaking, you are essentially a prehistoric hunter-gatherer who woke up this morning trapped inside a science fiction movie. This chart maps out the 300,000 years of human history. Our bodies and brains evolved during that massive, solid block of time. All of human civilization, agriculture, cities, the internet, is just this tiny, paper-thin sliver on the far right. For nearly 300 millennia, we survived in small nomadic bands. The leap to skyscrapers and global networks happened in a biological blink of an eye. That biological discrepancy is running quietly in the background of your life right now. It explains the strange behaviors of the animals sleeping on your couch. It explains why human infants are notoriously difficult to keep alive. And it's the exact reason why a late-night craving for dessert feels almost impossible to ignore. To understand why modern life can feel so overwhelming, you have to look past the technology and realize that your brain is still frantically trying to survive an ice age that ended 10,000 years ago. Let's start with human anatomy. Millions of years ago, early ancestors stood upright. Walking on two legs required a narrow, bowl-shaped pelvis for balance. But around the same time, we developed an incredibly energy-hungry, massive organ, a 3-pound brain. Biology hit a mechanical wall. A massive skull simply cannot safely pass through a narrow birth canal. So evolution forced a compromise, known as the obstetric dilemma. Instead of growing to full maturity inside the mother, human babies are evicted developmentally early. They arrive as external fetuses, completely helpless. Their brains are wildly unfinished, waiting to download massive amounts of information, things like language, social rules, and survival strategies. A newborn horse can run within hours, but a human infant requires over a decade of intense, exhausting care. A single mother surviving in the prehistoric wilderness could not manage this alone. That absolute helplessness forced humans into cooperative breeding, turning childcare into a team sport, involving grandparents, siblings, and the extended group. Because keeping a single child alive required the cooperation of the entire village, social intelligence became our primary survival skill. In these tiny groups, being able to resolve conflict or de-escalate tension was more valuable than raw strength. This is likely why we evolved to find traits like humor and storytelling so attractive. They were the social glue that ensured the group stayed together long enough to raise the next generation. The deep emotional attachments we experience today, the complex feelings of romance and pair bonding, are built directly on top of an ancient biological mechanism designed to keep two exhausted parents together long enough to keep a helpless toddler alive. As those early human tribes gathered around their fires, they left a trail behind them. Hunter-gatherers discarded bones, skins, and partially eaten carcasses. To any predator lurking in the dark, a human camp was simply a moving pile of free calories. Most wild wolves kept their distance. A few individuals with naturally lower aggression crept closer to the light. Over thousands of generations, these calmer, more curious wolves gained a massive survival advantage. By trading their fear for our leftovers, their bodies shrank, their ears flopped, and they transformed into the animals sleeping at the foot of our beds today. Humanity's relationship with its other closest companion started quite differently. Around 12,000 years ago, we stopped wandering. We settled into villages, planted crops, and began storing massive piles of grain for the winter. This sudden accumulation of food triggered an explosion in local rodent populations. That grain crisis attracted a completely different animal. To small, solitary, desert-dwelling predators, early farming settlements looked like giant mouse factories. Wildcats entered human society purely through mutual convenience, protecting our food supplies in exchange for endless hunting grounds. They remained genetically and behaviorally identical to their wild ancestors, yet they managed to infiltrate human culture and eventually elevated their status to gods. Our modern pets are not our creations. Dogs joined us as partners to survive the harsh Ice Age nights, while cats simply realized that human civilization was the ultimate survival strategy and opportunistically moved in. Our ancestors survived by constantly looking for patterns in a dangerous world. Lacking scientific frameworks for chaos, their brains evolved to over-detect agency. If the ground suddenly began to shake and roar during an earthquake, the human mind naturally assumed invisible giants or angry gods were responsible. That same intense survival software governed how they ate. In a brutal prehistoric world where every calorie was fiercely contested, finding a source of intense sweetness like wild honey was a rare, life-saving resource. Because sweetness appeared so briefly in nature, the brain evolved to treat it as an emergency opportunity. Human biology hardwired us to consume massive amounts of sugar immediately before competing animals could steal it, or before it simply rotted away. Human ingenuity broke that natural limitation. We learned to extract and crystallize sugar, turning a fleeting resource into something that could be stored indefinitely, traded across oceans, and mass-produced. Your ancestors had to endure hundreds of bee stings or climb dangerous trees just to taste a fraction of the sugar found in a modern pastry. Today, processed foods are engineered specifically to trigger that exact ancient survival response on demand. These cravings are ancient survival programs running perfectly in an environment they weren't built for. Your nervous system reacts to a donut as if it were a rare, life-saving discovery, unaware that the hunt ended generations ago and the treasure cave never empties. Every skyscraper, every massive empire, and every scientific discovery in history was built by a species completely tethered to Ice Age biology. The modern frustrations we face constantly, dating fatigue, diet struggles, or even the unreadable independence of the cats sitting in our living room, are direct echoes of the survival tactics forged beside ancient campfires. When modern life feels overwhelming, give yourself some grace. You are a prehistoric survivor, trying to navigate a sci-fi world you built too fast.